this video we're going to be taking a look at the Retina MacBook Pros and if they're still worth getting in 2024. So the Retina MacBook Pros first came out in 2012, and when they came out, they were still selling the normal unibody MacBook Pros as well, so you could choose between those two. And they kept making these laptops up until 2016, where they introduced the newer MacBook Pros with the butterfly keyboards. The Retina MacBook Pros are loved by a lot of people because they have a great port selection, a slim design, and a really great display. And they also still have a really nice keyboard compared to the more modern Macs with the butterfly keyboard, which was a huge flop, and obviously they switched back to the previous keyboard style now. So in 2024, these laptops are extremely good value now because you can pick up even a 15-inch version with a quad-core i7 for as cheap as $200 Australian dollars or less even sometimes. So I ended up buying a 2013 MacBook Pro Retina in the 15-inch screen size. And I wasn't too sure on what specs I was getting because the listing didn't really have much description to it, but I knew that it would come with an i7 because these basically only came with i7s. So to my surprise, when I got it, it had the i7 4850HQ, which is a 2.3 GHz i7 and it's 4 cores. So it's reasonably powerful, and it also came with the GT 750 NVIDIA graphics, which has 2 GB of onboard memory, so it's a pretty old and outdated graphics card, but still it's got the dual graphics, which was nice. And then it has 16 GB of RAM and a 500 GB SSD. So it actually came pretty specced out. And also the condition this laptop came in was pretty good. It only has a few scratches here and there, and other than that, everything is pretty much perfect. So it's actually a bit of a bargain. So I was expecting the battery life to be pretty poor, but to my surprise, it only has around 273 cycles on it, so it actually lasts about 3 to 4 hours under moderate use. If you really push the CPU, it won't last too long, but it's still pretty good considering the age. And you can find very similar deals all over eBay and Facebook Marketplace. And the reason they're so cheap is because of Apple Silicon. As soon as Apple Silicon came out, all the Intel Macs have gone down substantially, and especially the Retina ones, they're a really great value because you still get decent performance and you get a phenomenal screen as well, which is one of the main selling points. I really love the Retina screen, but I'll get more into that soon. So let's talk about the build quality and design of these laptops in 2024. The build quality is phenomenal. It's made fully out of aluminium. It has a very nice, sleek, thin design, which is a lot better than the unibody MacBooks in my opinion. The unibody MacBooks are a bit too fat for 2024. They're just too chunky and quite heavy, while the Retina MacBook Pros are actually thinner than the new MacBook Pros that have come out with the Apple Silicon. So they're actually really nice and portable, and they're very sturdy and strong, obviously because they're made out of full aluminium. And the design, in my opinion, still holds up extremely well in 2024. They look quite modern and just a really nice laptop. The port selection on this laptop is pretty good for me, but a lot of people would prefer USB Type-C, obviously, because that's what everyone's switching to. But I still love using USB Type-A. That's what most of my cables are anyway. So I really like the port selection on this device. It's obviously got MagSafe on there. Then it's got 2 Thunderbolt 2 ports. It's got 2 USB Type-A, and that's USB 3, of course. And then it's got an SD card slot and a HDMI port. It's also got a headphone jack as well. Now let's talk about one of the main selling points of these laptops, which is the beautiful display. The Retina display on this is miles better than any of the unibody MacBook Pros. The unibody MacBook Pros had a very low resolution. Even in the 15-inch variant, it was below 1080p, while the Retinas, they're an in-between resolution, but they're very good. When you look at it even close up, you can't really see the pixels at all, while with the unibodies, you could see it very obviously. And the colors and viewing angles are also really great. Now what about the keyboard and trackpad? The keyboard is still really nice. It has plenty of travel. In my opinion, it is still better than the current keyboards they have in their MacBook Pros, because the keyboards they have now do have a fair bit less travel, which can make it a little bit harder on the fingers. Not to say it's bad, it does feel good, the new ones as well, but I just prefer the longer travel of these older MacBook Pros. And the trackpad is also really good. It would be nice if it was bigger, but it still is really nice to use. It has a really nice glass surface on there, which is a real pleasure to use. So what about the performance on these laptops? Obviously they come in a lot of different spec variants. These laptops came in either i5s or i7s that are dual core in the 13-inch ones, and then in the 15-inch variants you just get i7s and they're all quad core. They did come in a few different clock speeds, but they're all very capable. The only one that isn't that great is the 2012 one. That one was quite slow compared to the rest. Once they switched to the late 2013, 2014 ones and then the 2015 ones, those are all pretty fast in 2024. Now obviously they don't compare that well to Apple Silicon. Apple Silicon is just insane, and obviously this is a lot slower, but it still is pretty capable in 2024. But with all this power in such a slim form factor, these MacBooks do get pretty hot. I was monitoring the temperature on this laptop and it easily gets to 100 degrees, and then obviously the fans ramp up and it thermal throttles. So that means you aren't getting the peak performance out of these CPUs, which is a shame. You have to keep in mind these laptops are pretty slim and it's quite an old laptop. So back then the i7s and i5s and all that weren't that temperature efficient or power efficient, so it did create a lot of heat. So unfortunately this cooling design is not really that great for this laptop, but it's not terrible. When you're not rendering or using the CPU to 100% usage, this laptop stays very quiet and not too warm at all, so it's actually pretty good. Now the last thing to talk about is the software here. My 2013 MacBook Pro can only be upgraded to Big Sur, and that's all. Over time, a lot less apps will be supporting on these devices. I'm pretty sure there is a patch tool you can use to get even the latest software on these laptops, so I might look into that. But for now, the software experience on macOS Big Sur is still really good. Everything's very snappy, and yeah, it's just a great experience using this laptop. It's just a shame that they've already cut support to these. So, would I recommend picking one of these up in 2024? The performance to price ratio here is really good. You get a pretty powerful laptop for a very cheap price. And so, if you are on the hunt for a relatively cheap MacBook, these are definitely worth looking into. The 13-inch versions are a bit cheaper, but they're also a lot less powerful. So I would recommend getting a 15-inch version because then you get the quad-core processor, which easily handles most tasks. But it really does depend on your use case. If you just want a whole bunch of power, then I would look into Apple Silicon Macs. I would look at getting a used M1 Mac because that would be a fair bit cheaper than the brand new M3 ones, but you'd still get great performance. That would be like a good balance. But if you're just after pure budget and like a really cheap laptop, then these Retina ones are really good. So hopefully this video did help you out. If it did, drop a like on the video and remember to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.